Most Labour Party members are not anti-Semitic. What will you do to dispel the misconception amongst voters anti-Semitism is rife in the party?
Well, deal with it, I suppose, is the obvious answer to that. I mean, I felt very strongly about this because I represent a town where my working class Labour Party members have gone and fought racism and fought off the far right over and over again for decades. We saw Tommy Robinson off last year in the European elections, and if he tries to come back to Wigan, we'll see him off again. And they were knocking on doors in this election being told that they were racist because we'd had a collective failure of leadership at the top of the party for years, where we'd allowed high-profile cases of anti-Semitism to go undealt with and unaddressed, and by doing so, we've given a green light to anti-Semites everywhere that they had a home in Labour. Now, look, I spoke up about this. I spoke up about it when I was in the shadow cabinet. It's the only time I broke collective responsibility, and I spoke up on every occasion in the 3 years after that. And the reason that I did that is because I am half Indian, and I know what racism feels like, and I know that it cannot be your battle alone to fight it. There is no such thing as being not racist. There is either being a racist or there is being an anti-racist. It requires you to take an active stance and to go out and challenge and fight for better. That is what I did. There is a serious question of judgment here. And I would just say this to Keir, is that I believe that you are sincere about this, but if we do not acknowledge how badly the shadow cabinet as a whole got this wrong, we will not earn the trust of the Jewish community, and those people that you talk about, who I want to see back in the party, will never look to us again.
Lisa, you were in a shadow cabinet when this issue came up as well.
And I spoke out. I spoke out.
Not for the last 3 years.
I spoke out publicly, and then I left and I didn't return. And I continued to speak out for 3 years. And, you know, the shadow cabinet was offered sight of the submission to the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which was investigating Labour for institutional racism. And apparently not a single person took up the offer of seeing the party's position on that.
That's absolute nonsense. Tom
I'm sorry, we've got to be honest about where we've got to.
Hear me out about what actually happened. I don't break... Shadow Cabinet should be confidential, and I don't break the confidences. It was Tom Watson and I that were asking for that submission and were offered it. So this is complete nonsense. That was what we were trying to do. I argued we should change the definition to the international definition. I argued it for months in the Shadow Cabinet, and in the end we did it. I argued that we should have automatic expulsion of clear cases, and in the end, after those arguments, we did it. So we made some difference. You're talking there about
not wanting to break shadow cabinet responsibility. Do you remember Rebecca Long-Bailey speaking out in shadow cabinet?
I think, given where we've got to, I think the last thing our members, our movement, and our country wants is us all trying to take lumps out of each other about who did what. The test for us is how would we deal with this as leader of the Labour Party, and I would take a leadership role on this in the way I've described.
People want to know what happened when it comes to anti-Semitism. That is fair, isn't it? People want to know the truth.
There were massive rows in the shadow cabinet. We were absolutely on it, and we were making massive arguments. I was saying over and again, once that Equality and Human Rights Commission is looking at us, don't close the books, give them access to all of our records.
Did Rebecca Long-Bailey speak out at shadow cabinet?
Look, Rebecca didn't speak out in the same way as I did in my view, but I really, really don't think, and I don't think it's fair, and it's right for us to just try to score points now off each other in relation to this.
I want to bring you in. I want to bring in Rebecca Long-Bailey at this point.
In 4 weeks' time, the test for us is how are we going to deal with it as leader of the Labour Party?
I'm keen to talk now to Rebecca Long-Bailey. It's only fair to bring in Rebecca Long-Bailey at that point. What is your recollections of what happened in those shadow cabinets?
I'm not pointing fingers or making a note of the exact dates and times that particular individuals spoke at shadow cabinet. Keir knows that I spoke at shadow cabinet a number of times about this. I was often the shadow cabinet member that did the media to try and explain what was happening and expressed my concern many, many times about how we weren't tackling this in the way that I thought we should. But the time
doesn't seem to be what he's saying.
The time for retrospective criticism of each other has gone. We are in a crisis. And I know that it's been soul-destroying for many of our members because we're not an anti-Semitic or a racist party. But many of our members went out in that general election and they knocked on the doors of Jewish voters who didn't trust us and they were frightened of the Labour Party. And we have to accept that that has happened, and we've got to rebuild that trust. And that's why we need to have an independent process for complaints, not just for anti-Semitism, for all forms of discrimination within the party. We've got to adopt any recommendations that the EHRC put forward in the coming months, and we need to have an auto-expulsion process for clear-cut cases of anti-Semitism and racism within our party.
Okay, thank you very much.